Renters versus landlords. So today's tip of the day I'm going to share with you guys. Now, knowledge is power, and so I would like to make you more powerful by giving you the knowledge needed. I'm Jonathan Daniel, your Arkansas bearded broker, and today we're going to talk about the rights and responsibilities of landlords and tenants. But before we go through this, if you have any real estate questions, send me a direct message, private message, and I will try to answer that to my best ability as soon as I possibly can. Now, let's dig into it. Now, there are six items listed in our what we call the implied residential quality standards form for renters and landlords. And I want to cover a couple of these things that are really going to help you out. But again, knowledge is power. So here, let's go through it real quick. This is an Arkansas real estate form that we fill out whenever a landlord is going to rent out to a tenant. Okay, this is not anything private between the landlord and tenant. If you want to go through a property management form or you want to have things legally documented, this is what you're going to use. Now, in here has some interesting stuff that you may not know about. It talks about the exception to some of these rules, and it calls it an act of God. If some of these are prevented by the act of God, some of these things are outside the requirements for the landlord. And let's cover a couple of these things. One of them is time tested because of the pandemic, and it's specifically in there. Now, before this time, was pandemic written in there? I highly doubt it. So it talks about an act of God. It's number one. Number two, public utility service. So if the utilities are down, that's an exception to having these 6 items there. Pandemic, COVID probably started this whole deal. Work stoppages, labor or material shortages. So when there's a hurricane, a tornado, and people are buying up a lot of the building supplies, there's a labor shortage right there, or a material shortage. So I want to cover the 6 items that a landlord is responsible to give to a tenant. But some of these have some gray area to them and they're open for interpretation. At that point, I'm not an attorney. You would want to speak to an attorney and ask them what this specifically means, what your rights and your responsibilities are. And then very lastly, we're going to cover one of the most important aspects of this contract. So, number one, an available source of hot and cold running water. Tenants, do you have this? Does your landlord provide them? That is a responsibility of your landlord to provide those items. Number two, an available source of electricity. Number three, a source of potable drinking water. Now, here in Arkansas, there are some people that still drink out of creeks and springs, and it's perfectly fine. It works. Number four, a sanitary sewer system. Here's the caveat to that. A sanitary sewer system and plumbing that conforms to applicable building codes and housing codes in existence at the time of installation. So can you think of maybe a property that has an old septic system in it from the early 1900s that's still in use today? Now, it does not pass code, but it still works. Are there some of those in rural Arkansas? Yes, there are. Number five, a functioning roof and building envelope. What exactly does that mean? I can understand the roof, but a building envelope, is that free from drafts? Is it cosmetic? So there's a gray area there that needs a little bit of clarification. And number 6, the last one, a functioning heating and air conditioning system. Now check this part out. To the extent of the heating and air conditioning system served the premise at the time the landlord and the tenant entered into the lease or rental agreement. So a tenant goes to look at a house, decides they're going to lease it. At the time that they go to do their walkthrough and sign the contract, the AC system did work or the heater did work, but now it doesn't. Now, I'm going to give you a little side note on this. I have a rental property. It is run through a property management company. Now, it is all electric. But as we know in Arkansas, sometimes the power goes out. Ice storms, thunderstorms, heavy rains, snow. What am I as a landlord responsible for on the heating side? So to not get caught with my pants down, I decided to install a propane heater's backup. In addition, I have thrown in plumbing to get access to a propane water heater so they have not only heat in the property, in the house, supplemental other than the electric. So now they have a propane burner. But they also will have a propane water heater if in fact that the electricity goes out. So they are taken care of in that aspect. Now, what I told you before, the very last portion of this is extremely important. If you are getting this implied residential quality standards form to rent out a place, the very last portion, let me read this to you, pay very close attention. The leasee shall return page 2 of 2 of this form to the landlord within 2 business days. You got 2 business days to return this back to the landlord. 2 business days from signing the residential lease, residential rental agreement. If it is not returned within the 2 business days, landlord will be considered in compliance with this code. If you get this in on day 3 or beyond, or don't even turn it back in, the landlord is assumed that he's within his rights on here. Tenant, you will lose out. You will lose out on the heating. You will lose out on the envelope. You will lose out on some of these protections that are given to you or the responsibilities that the landlord has to give to you on these items. So again, a recap, 6 items that you will want to take care of on your rental property. Landlords, hot and cold running water, electricity, drinking water, a sewer system that functions, roof and building envelope that works, heating and air conditioning. Those are your responsibilities. But tenants, in there's a little bit of gray area. So just pay attention to those things. So again, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more powerful you are. So I hope this helps you guys. I know in Searcy County and some of the surrounding counties, there are a plethora of rental properties and renters in those. And because the state does lean a little bit towards the rights of the landlord, some tenants are not exactly in the most habitable buildings. So I hope this helps you out. If you guys have any other real estate questions, shoot them over to me. Let me see if I can answer them, and I'll post them here and I'll share them with everybody, because I'm sure if you have that question, many other people have the same question but just haven't had the chance to ask. God bless. If you need anything, get a hold of me. Jonathan Daniel, your bearded broker in Arkansas with Arkansas Mountain Real Estate.